In the beginning, before time was time, God created the angels. They were beings of pure light, radiant and powerful. Among them, none shone brighter than Lucifer. His name meant light-bringer, and he was perfect in beauty and wisdom. He was God's most beloved angel, entrusted with great power and responsibility. Lucifer, in his early days, was filled with joy and love for his Creator. He spent his time in perfect harmony with his fellow angels, glorifying God with songs of praise. His heart overflowed with gratitude for the gift of existence. His laughter echoed through the heavens, a testament to his happiness and contentment. Lucifer was a beacon of hope and inspiration to his brethren. His wisdom and knowledge were unmatched, and he shared them freely with those around him. Angels flocked to him, eager to hear his pronouncements and bask in his radiant light. He was the epitome of angelic virtue, a shining example of God's power and grace. God appointed Lucifer as the morning star, the highest rank among the angels. He was the guardian of heaven, the leader of the cherubim and seraphim, the most powerful and revered of God's creations. His duty was to protect the throne of God and ensure harmony throughout the celestial realms. Lucifer's brilliance was undeniable. He was a skilled musician, a gifted orator and a master strategist. He commanded respect and admiration from all who knew him. His presence filled heaven with a sense of awe and wonder. His very being seemed to radiate the divine light of the Creator. However, pride began to take root in Lucifer's heart. He started to focus on his own glory, his own power, his own beauty. The seed of discontent, though minuscule at first, had been planted. He began to see himself as separate from God, as an individual rather than a servant. The whispers started subtly. Why should he serve? Why should he answer to a higher power when he was so clearly exceptional? These thoughts, once unthinkable, began to take root in his mind. The once unwavering loyalty began to waver, replaced by a growing sense of entitlement. The pivotal moment arrived with the creation of mankind. God, in his infinite love, created human beings and placed them above the angels. He commanded all angels to bow down to humanity, to love and serve them. This decree struck Lucifer to his core. How could these fragile, flawed creatures be considered superior to him, an angel of light? Resentment festered within Lucifer. He saw humans as inferior beings, unworthy of the love and adoration God showered upon them. Jealousy gnawed at his heart. He, the most perfect of God's creations, was being asked to bow before these creatures of dust. The thought was anathema to him. He refused to bow. In his pride, Lucifer convinced himself that God was asking too much. He believed he was being unjustly treated, his position threatened by beings he considered inferior. His heart hardened, and he began to plot against his Creator. The whispers grew louder, becoming a roar within his mind. He convinced himself that he could rule heaven, that he could be like God himself. He would create his own kingdom, one where he was worshipped and adored. And so the once radiant angel began his descent into darkness. Lucifer, fueled by pride and envy, shared his discontent with other angels. He appealed to their sense of pride, their desire for power. He promised them freedom from God's tyranny and a new order where they would be revered as gods. Many were swayed by his words, seduced by his promises of power and glory. Some angels, blinded by their loyalty to Lucifer, readily joined his cause. They had long admired his strength and intelligence. They trusted his judgment and were willing to follow him, even in rebellion against God. These angels, though misguided, genuinely believed they were fighting for a just cause. Others were more hesitant. They were torn between their love for God and their loyalty to Lucifer. They questioned the righteousness of his cause, but were afraid to stand against him. The decision weighed heavily upon them, the consequences of choosing a side too daunting to bear. The heavens, once filled with joy and harmony, became a place of tension and suspicion. Angels who were once brothers and sisters now eyed each other with distrust and fear. The bonds of love and brotherhood were strained to their breaking point, threatening to shatter the very fabric of heaven. The war in heaven was fierce and devastating. Lucifer, once the most beloved angel, led a third of the angels in rebellion against God. The battle raged on, with angels clashing in a celestial conflict that shook the very foundations of heaven. In the end, God's forces triumphed. Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven, banished to the depths of hell. They were stripped of their former glory, their radiant light turned to darkness. Lucifer, now known as Satan, became the ruler of hell, forever separated from the divine presence of God. The loyal angels who remained in heaven mourned the loss of their brethren, but they continued to serve God with unwavering devotion. Lucifer, once a seraphim, the highest class of angel, now plotted his revenge from the shadows. He approached God with a challenge to test the faith and loyalty of humanity. Lucifer argued that humans were weak and easily swayed, unworthy of God's love and favor. He claimed that given the chance, humans would turn away from God and follow their own desires. God, in his infinite wisdom, accepted the challenge. He allowed Lucifer to test humanity, knowing that true faith and loyalty could only be proven through trials, and so Lucifer set out to tempt and deceive mankind, seeking to prove his point and undermine God's creation. The war in heaven may have ended, but the battle for the souls of humanity had just begun. The aftermath of the rebellion left heaven in a state of mourning and reflection. Lucifer, once the epitome of divine grace and beauty, had transformed into Satan, the adversary. But how did this transformation occur, and why were some angels sent with him while others found new destinies on earth? Lucifer's descent into becoming Satan was not just a change in name, but a profound alteration of his very essence. Stripped of his celestial light, his heart filled with bitterness and hatred. His once radiant wings turned dark, and his countenance, which had inspired awe, now instilled fear. The pride that had led him to challenge God became his chains, binding him to his new domain in hell. The angels who followed Lucifer in his rebellion faced their own grim fates. Those who had been closest to him, who had shared in his pride and defiance, were cast out alongside their leader. They became the fallen, their divine forms twisted by their disobedience. In hell they found themselves under Satan's dominion, serving his dark purposes and sharing in his eternal torment. Yet not all angels who were involved in the rebellion were destined for hell. Some, who had been swayed by Lucifer's charisma but repented their actions, were given a different fate. These angels were sent to earth, tasked with guiding and protecting humanity. They became the guardians, watching over God's creation and striving to counteract Satan's influence. Their mission was to inspire faith, hope, and love, acting as a counterbalance to the temptations and trials orchestrated by Satan. This great divide among the angels highlighted the stark contrast between loyalty and rebellion, light and darkness, hope and despair. The celestial order had been irrevocably changed, and the echoes of this conflict would resonate throughout the ages. As Lucifer, now Satan, continued his quest to test and tempt humanity, the loyal angels on earth worked tirelessly to uphold God's will. The battle for the souls of mankind had indeed begun, with each side vying to prove their point in the grand design of creation. The war in heaven was over, but the story of good versus evil, of redemption and damnation, was far from its conclusion. The stage was set, and the players took their positions, each driven by their own convictions and destinies.